Sometimes the most modern ideas can be found in the most ancient places. Today, we're going to unlock a Korean poem that's almost 900 years old, and you'll be surprised at how much it has to say to us right now. So let's dive right in.
So our whole story kicks off with a real mystery. Picture this: a historian, way back in the 12th century, hears a popular song of the day. And instead of tapping his foot, he's just overwhelmed with this profound historical sadness. How does a simple song do that? How can a tune carry the sorrow of a king who's been gone for centuries? That's the puzzle we're going to solve together.
All right, here's our game plan. We'll look at the song itself, find its hidden clues, see how it connects to another epic story, and then really figure out what it all means and why it still matters.
Okay, let's set the scene. The poem we're looking at is called Feelings on Hearing a Gisaeng Sing the Po-gok-ga. It was written by a man named Bu-sik. Now, this guy was a big deal, a famous historian during Korea's Goryeo Dynasty, living back in the 11th and 12th centuries. And one day, he's listening to a performer sing a song and something just clicks. Something profound gets triggered inside him.
So, to really get what the poet is feeling, we've got to put on our detective hats. We're going to break this poem down line by line, looking at the original Hanja characters. This was the script they used in Korea back then, and trust me, each little character is a piece of the puzzle.
All right, here's the very first line. In Korean, it's pronounced Gayen Yuchang Gugasal. Now let's pull that apart and see what it's telling us.
Okay, let's build this from the ground up. The first part, Gayen, means a beautiful person. In this case, our singer. Then you have Yu, which means still or as before. Chang is pretty straightforward, to sing. And Gugasa means old song lyrics. See? Pretty simple so far, right?
So put it all together, and the first line paints this really clear picture. We're in a room, maybe a hall, listening to a talented singer perform an old, familiar song. It feels peaceful, right? Almost ordinary. But this is where the poem takes a really sharp turn.
Check out the second line. It goes, Po-gok-bire reoksu hui. And just like that, we're not talking about the singer anymore. Suddenly, it's all about birds and trees. What's going on?
So let's break down these new clues. Po-gok is the cuckoo bird. Bire means to fly and come over. Ryoksu is an oak tree. But here's the real kicker, the most important word in the whole line, hui. It means rare or infrequent. All of a sudden, something is missing from the scene.
So the whole line is telling us that the cuckoo rarely comes to the oak tree anymore. Think about that switch. We go from a beautiful singer to a missing bird. Why in the world is the poet suddenly focused on an absent cuckoo? Well, to get that, we need a little backstory.
And here's where it gets really interesting. That old song the performer is singing, the Po-gok-ga, it was actually written by a king, King Yejong of Goryeo. And this king was in a tough spot. He needed honest feedback from his ministers, but they were all too afraid to speak the truth. So out of frustration, he wrote this very song. And the cuckoo, that became his symbol, his metaphor for the loyal, truthful advisor he so desperately wanted but couldn't find. So when our poet, Kim Bu-sik, hears this song decades later, it hits him. He feels that king's loneliness, that same sorrow, realizing that truthful voices are still so rare.
Okay, so we've cracked the first half of the code. We know what the cuckoo means. But Kim Bu-sik isn't done, not by a long shot. He does something brilliant. He makes this massive leap and connects the Korean king's sadness to a totally different story, a famous tragedy from Tang Dynasty China. Let's see how he pulls this off in the second half.
So the third line goes, Hwansa nisange guk. It kicks off with Hwansa, which means it's just like, or it resembles. Resembles what, exactly? Well, it resembles the nisange guk.
And then comes the final line, the one that really lands the emotional punch of the whole poem. Gawan Yuro Rujamui.
Let's decode this last part. That long name, Ne Song Yui Gok, is a specific, famous Chinese song. Then Gaewon refers to the Kaiyuan era, which was basically a golden age in China. Yuro means the old people left behind, the survivors. And Rujomi, that's this powerful, heartbreaking image of tears literally soaking their clothes.
So when you put it all together, the poet is making a direct comparison. He's saying, hearing this Korean cuckoo song, it feels exactly like when the old survivors from China's golden age hear their famous song and just weep. Which, of course, leads us to the next big question. What is this Chinese song, and why does it make people cry?
Well, this song of rainbow skirts was basically the theme music for a spectacular golden age in China under Emperor Xuanzong. But the story takes a tragic turn. The emperor got lost in luxury and pleasure with his famous consort, Yang Guifei, and he started neglecting his duties. Then, a massive rebellion just shattered the peace and prosperity of the dynasty. So after all that, hearing that beautiful song, it wasn't a source of joy anymore. It was a painful, tear-soaked reminder of a brilliant world that was gone forever.
Okay, let's put it all together. We've got our two big clues on the table. A Korean song about a lonely king desperate for truth, and a Chinese song about survivors mourning a golden age they lost. The absolute key to this entire poem, the genius of it, is figuring out why our poet, Bu-sik, connected these two stories.
And here's the connection, laid out side by side. You have the Korean king's sorrow, which is his deep longing for an ideal he never had, true honesty. Then you have the Chinese survivor's sorrow, a tragic memory of a beautiful reality that was lost. They seem different, but they share the exact same core. Both stories are about hearing a beautiful piece of music that, instead of joy, triggers this deep sadness over something precious that's gone.
And this is it. This is the heart of the poem. Bu-sik isn't just showing off how much history he knows. He's not just making a clever comparison. He is feeling King Yejong's loneliness across the centuries. When he hears that song, he's tapping into the king's pain. In the same way the old men in China felt the ache of their fallen dynasty when they heard their song, the poem itself is a bridge built out of empathy, out of shared sorrow.
So that brings us to the big so what question. This is probably the most important part. What can we, living almost a millennium later, actually take away from this? Why should an ancient poem like this matter to any of us today?
Well, what the poem gives us is almost like a four-step guide to real empathy. Step 1, hear the song. That means really paying attention to the stories people are telling all around you. Step 2, understand the history. Dig a little deeper, learn the context behind someone's pain. Step 3, feel the emotion. This is the hard part. You have to actually let yourself connect with what they're going through. And finally, step 4, build the bridge. That's when you recognize that their experience, their humanity, is connected to your own.
And that right there is the true wisdom that Bu-sik unlocked. He didn't just hear a nice song. He heard a king's cry for help echoing through time. He's showing us that real listening isn't a passive thing. It's an active, courageous choice to feel with someone else, even someone you'll never meet.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. We are all surrounded by these kinds of songs, the stories of our friends, our families, the people in our communities. So the question is, what is the cuckoo song in your world right now? What is that story, that person, that's being overlooked or ignored, just waiting for someone to not only hear it, but to actually truly listen?